Hello. In today's video, we're going to take a look at about a mid-1960s airline. I think this is a 1966 airline model 62-9025A. The 9025A is the exact same circuit as we have seen in some of my other videos. I've actually demonstrated this amplifier before, but not quite to this extent. In today's video, we're actually going to repair this amplifier, go through all the steps that we took to repair it, and see what it took to get it to this point that we see here. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, stick around and we'll get to it. Okay, got a package opening here. This should be an airline amplifier made by Valco. I just noticed that the box is a bit crushed in on the top, as if something's been sat on it rather hard probably, so I just want to document the opening of the box to make sure everything's cool. Watch out, buddy, I don't want to cut you. Also, it's kind of instructive sometimes to see how things are packaged. Sometimes they're done well and sometimes not quite so well. This one's crushed in a little bit on the top, but at least it does have some extra protection there. Well, got newspaper, and let's see, the amp's not really, it's kind of free in here, so the newspaper is also stuffed down. You can see here here's one of the tubes. Kind of lucky that it even hung on for the ride. Because when you stuff stuff in there like that, a lot of times it starts moving around and your tubes will just go. Like that one did. See? That tube's come out and it's probably been rattling around for the whole ride. So that's going to be probably a bad tube. Maybe we'll get lucky. That's the 6V6. At this point, I'm kind of hoping and praying too that this speaker didn't get punctured or anything. Sometimes that can happen too. Sometimes it can happen, but I think we might be good with this one. There's our foot switches. It's nice to see. They made the trip. Well, yeah, here's one problem. I don't know if we're going to be able to see this or not. Alright, down in here, let's look at the transformer let's get some light. Okay, the power transformer, you see the leg of the power transformer right there? See the mounts on it? Power transformers are about the heaviest thing in an amp, and if you don't secure them, sometimes they can, because this has obviously been dropped. See how that's coming up right there on the legs of the power transformer? Whoop. Right there on the legs of the power transformer, you can see this little bracket right here. That's supposed to be flush against the chassis, but right now it's actually bent upward. That one back there is bent upward as well. So this was dropped on its end at some point. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. Object at rest tends to stay at rest. Newton's law is in effect. If you drop the box, all the mass of that power transformer wants to keep going in that downward direction, and that's what ends up happening. That right there. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. It did bend the power transformer mounts. But that's the sort of thing, sometimes you don't count on that. If this had been properly packaged, in other words, if all of the newspaper or whatever he used had been stuffed around it completely, it may have cushioned that blow a little bit. But as it was, all the newspaper it was stuffed in there, but it was allowed to move freely, and there wasn't enough of it to keep it all snug. So basically, you just got an amplifier. I mean, you can see here, see the space around the edge. I mean, you could shake the box, and the whole amplifier's moving inside the box. So you can imagine if it gets dropped, it's just going to keep, all the parts are just going to keep moving. That's why the power tube also came out. But you can see there, see how it's leaning, the transformer. See how it's not parallel to the tube. That's because that transformer's has been damaged. But I'm sure it's just the mount. So hopefully we got away with we averted disaster. But let's see. Also, this handle was exposed. I like putting extra padding around these plastic handles because if it gets dropped on the wrong end, imagine that's just going to smash right into that plastic handle and break this whole piece off. Here's the front. All of our knobs and everything survived okay. This was there before it was shipped out, so that's okay. Expected that. And our logo did survive. That's kind of a wonder because it was just brushing against the loose paper the whole trip. If you want to save logos, this is a tip. If you want to save logos, plastic pieces, things like that, the best thing to do is to wrap the amplifier. If you're shipping an amp, wrap it in bubble wrap. You know, both ways. Make sure it's got a good thickness of kind of bubble wrap wrapped around it. And then you can put it inside the box, and then you can shove stuff around it. So that there's space on all sides of the amp. So if it is dropped, you know, that'll protect the outside of the amp. And also, there's nothing, because it's the bubble wrap is going to be snug around the amp. It's not going to move around the bubble wrap itself, so it's not going to take off things like the logo. It's not going to, and it's going to protect things like the handle. At any rate, it could have been a little better, but overall, at least the thing arrived. I expected to have to open it up and do a little bit of work on it anyway, so it's not the end of the world. If I need to bend those transformer legs back flush. Overall, it did make it, but little bit to be desired on the packaging. But this should be a lesson to everyone who ships amplifiers, you know, on how not to do things. Okay, we're going to open up this Airline amp, but before we do, we're just going to kind of look at it a bit closer here. Like all Airline Valcos, it's got kind of a mirrored finish on the chassis. You can see my hand there, and you'll probably get glimpses of the light like that if I do it right. We also have the tube designations stamped in like an orange ink on the chassis. We see again there the probably even a better look at that damage to that transformer. I say damage, I mean the transformer's not damaged, but the legs are, and we'll probably end up fixing that. I might just take those two legs off and try to bend them back into shape. We'll see what we can do with that. I might be able to do something with it. The speaker is the original Jensen. It is labeled the 44th week of 1965, and it is a C10R. The C stands for ceramic, of course. If it was Alnico, it would have been a P, and plus a different shaped magnet. Here is our cardboard box, which is our reverb. You can see the cable here for the reverb. Used to have some kind of retainer right here, like a plastic retainer, but it was cracked and broken off. That which they're apt to do. Not a huge deal, but we also see that the baffle and the entire cabinet. First of all, the cabinet is finger jointed, and it is birch, and the baffle is also birch. Here is a serial number over here, and you can date these by these serial numbers or by the speakers and other components, of course. But the serial numbers, there's a pretty good online serial number lookup for Valco amps. You can just type in Valco serial numbers and look up your serial numbers, but they're usually on a little sticker like that on Valcos. And this one begins with a 1, and that will tell you the year. This one still has the 2-prong cord, which, depending on the overall condition, I may or may not change to a 3. We're going to get a look at it, and I'll kind of play it by ear, but we'll see. The power transformer is dated 40th week of 1965, and it is a 524 manufacturer. I'm not sure who that is. Here's our original Mallory can cap, and we have a couple of other transformers back here. One, I believe, drives the reverb, if I remember correctly, on this model, and the other, of course, is the output transformer. And these are 524s also, and both of them dated the 40th week of 1965. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there they are. So yeah, let's crack this thing open. In order to get one of these open, it usually looks like you have to take these back screws out, but that's not the case. This is actually just holding on the internal piece of wood that is inside the C shape of the chassis. So your actual dismounting screws are here on the sides. So we'll take those out and get a better look at the inside. Well, I don't even have the chassis fully out yet, and I can already tell more than just the power transformer was bent in whatever drop occurred. The 2 screws on the same side over here as the transformer, the ones that were on this side of the amp, both of them were bent like this. So this amp, you know, this screw would have been holding in the chassis. So when the chassis was trying to move after it was dropped, both screws were bent. So I don't know. It doesn't really bode too well. I would be very surprised if this thing just fired. I mean, I wouldn't be very surprised if it just fired up and went. But I also wouldn't be surprised if something was knocked loose or what have you on the inside. So let's see if that might be the case. So let's go ahead and get her open and see if that might be the case. But yeah, I don't like the look of that. If nothing else, when I put this back together, I'm going to have to gently bend those back to shape too. Okay, so we have the chassis out and open on the bench here, and first impressions, this thing is not only extremely clean on the inside, but it's also extremely original. In fact, I would venture to say that it's 100% original. We see all of the original black Mallory caps, signal caps, are still in it. The white Mallorys are also still in it. And these are both types of these are typical of Valco construction. You also see these black Mallorys a lot in Gibson amps of the time, as well as the white ones. Here's a lone standard cap down here. You also do see these in Valcos, and that's original for sure. And you also, the 4th type is these ceramic disc magnets, which you definitely see a lot in Valcos, and I think is actually probably largely responsible for the kind of gritty, grimy overdrive tone that you get out of these old Valcos. But yeah, once again, this is 100% original, with the possible exception of this cap. Now this is actually tied in parallel with the can, with one of the can caps. You can see the can cap is down there, and this is tied in parallel, so it's going parallel to ground with one of those. I'm not sure which, but this is a 20 microfarad here, And I'm thinking this is probably put in, because I don't remember seeing anything like this in any other Valcos stock from the factory, having a a parallel cap like that. So I'm not sure about that one. A little bit of a question there. Someone must have been in this at some point, because the back screws had been messed with. I think they had at least been turned. I think. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. It looked at first like the heads maybe. No, actually, on second thought, I don't think those heads have been messed with. But those wouldn't have gotten the chassis out anyway. Let's look at these others. Just out of curiosity, I like to see how often something's been opened up, and you can usually tell by looking at the screw heads. This one, that one looks pretty darn good. I don't think that's been touched much, if any, since it was new. Yeah, I don't think these have been really. I don't think this thing's been opened up. I think this might be the first time since 1965 or 66 that anybody's even seen these guts. So yeah, that very well could be original, but I'm not sure. The last amp of this model I did not open it up, so which I guess I should have. But that's why I do these videos. Now I have a record of it. In the future, I will know for sure whether that was original or not, and I might even be able to look online for some other gut shots that some other conscientious owners have posted to the internet. Here's another look at the face plate. But yeah, this thing, as far as the guts, looks 100% original. Here's our so-called death cap here. Here's the original two-prong cord coming in from right down there. And yeah, I'm pretty confident in saying this is 100% original, and actually extremely clean. So what I'm thinking about doing here is leaving it as is. I might try a little bit to straighten up that that power transformer, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's not falling off or anything. I do see one nut right here. Looks like it might have been replaced. So yeah, that nut's been replaced, I think. Possibly. So it is well, no. Well, here's a second one over here on this leg. That could also have something to do with the transformer leg coming up like it was. So it's hard to say for sure. And then it looks like it's missing a screw here. So that's weird too. I mean, this is definitely the original transformer. There's no doubt about that. It just looks like maybe a screw fell out, perhaps. Don't know. Anyway. So I guess I have to take back the 100% original thing. So these are probably not original to the amp. That one probably is, that nut right there. But why they would have taken that out, I really don't know. Unless somebody else was trying to straighten it up also and then just gave up on it and lost the nuts or something. Who knows? But this transformer definitely looks original. This looks exactly like the transformer, and it's the same number and everything, same year, same code. So it's definitely an original transformer for this amp. So I'm not sure how to explain that, other than maybe at the factory they ran out of the right kind of nut and they just improvised. I don't know. That's one possible explanation. I don't see the. And if this thing had just come off, you would expect to find a loose nut somewhere in here, and I don't see one anywhere. So I can't really explain the missing nut, other than, either it wasn't there from the beginning, or it was there in the beginning and somebody got in here and took it out. So anyway, that's where we are. It's mostly original. I'd say 99.9% original. And tell you what we're going to do. We're going to fire this thing up and just see what is working or not working. Alright, I'm bringing this thing slowly up on a Variac here, and we're going to see if it works or not. And I'll just capture this live. I haven't plugged it in before this, so I'll be as surprised as you either way. So we at least have light. I've got it dialed up enough to have the neon light come on, so that's a good sign. Also, I noticed the tubes that I can see have fire in them. Power tube's getting hot. Rectifier's getting hot. Sorry for the vomit-inducing camera work here. Sorry if you make you seasick. I guess it's better than a dose of Ipecac. You can look that up. Hang on, let's plug a... I'm going to put the camera down here for... Well, actually, I'm going to see if I can do this one-handed. It's a talent. See if I can plug in a guitar and hold it one-handed here. I might edit some of this crap out so you don't have to see it. Actually, chime in the comments and let me know if this is the kind of crap you even like to see. I know sometimes I just get fascinated with other videos from other guys who just let the video run. And sometimes, you know, it's nice to have edits too, where you don't have to sit through a bunch of crap. But let me know in the comments if you enjoy this sort of thing, or if you don't. I may or may not do this again, like this. So, well, I've got nothing. That's not a good sign. Or does this thing have a standby? I can't remember whether this has a standby or not. Let's try flipping that the other way. So, nope. Still nothing. So, and I've got the guitar up. Pretty sure. Yeah, I do. So it's not the guitar. Let's see if it just doesn't have enough juice yet. Let's dial up the juice. And watch it catch fire. Whoa. Not sure what that was. Well, that's certainly not the best of signs. I'm getting nothing at all. I've got fire, but nothing else. So, bad preamp tube? Who knows at this point? Let's see. I don't think so. I might try hooking the speaker leads up to another speaker. I don't know if I even hear... I hear the speaker kind of buzz a little bit. I don't even hear much speaker buzz though. Let's set this camera down for a second. Let me do some tinkering and figure out what's going on. Okay, I'm going to bring the amp back on slowly, and I'm going to replace preamp tubes first, one at a time, and see if I can't get it to work that way. And then if it doesn't, I'll dig out a V6 and assume that this one was damaged in shipping, because it did come out in shipping, if you'll recall earlier in the video. So, okay, got a new power tube in there, and I flipped it on, and we'll see what happens with this one. I believe this is a good power tube. Absolutely no sound whatsoever. It's ominously pointing to me to either output transformer or burned up speaker. So let's run on that assumption for now. I've gotten the speaker leads desoldered, and I'm checking it with my ohm meter, and the speaker, let's see here, let's get them back on there. Sorry if we're having trouble seeing. Let's connect our leads here, and I mean, we can see here it's open, it's burnt open. So hell's bells, we've got a dead Jensen Special Design C10R. Alright, I've gone ahead and taken this speaker out, and I've gotten a test speaker off of my wall, and we're gonna try something different. Here's the original speaker, and unfortunately, yeah, it's all open. I don't hear anything rattling, but yeah, it's definitely tested open. So that's one I might put on the back burner. I mean, because it's in good shape. I'm not going to throw it away. I'll leave it with the amp. But But yeah, we're going to test this thing out. And before we go any further, I'm just going to test it with the speaker out. I'm not going to bother putting it in or anything. We're just going to use some gator clips and run some wires here. So let's fire it up and see if we're looking at anything worse than a bad speaker. Let me make sure. Well, there we have life. I can already tell it's going to work, so I think it was just a bad speaker. That's still extremely unfortunate. I'm going to plug in the guitar anyway. Tremolo works. That's good. Sometimes that doesn't work on these and you have to fix them. It's looking like maybe the reverb doesn't work. Well, no. I'm hearing something. It's possible that I don't know which tube is the reverb tube. You know, I've had a problem before in the past with Valco amps on the switch for the reverb. So let me check the switch actually and make sure it's not grounded out. Okay, actually before I take this chassis back out and check the jack, I can tell just again by tapping on this, you can hear signal coming out. So that tells me on the return side at least there's signal coming from the tank and being fed back in. So I don't think it's on the return side of the tank. So it's something in the tank or before that's causing the problem. Might be the first inductor or something before. It's like it's not sending signal through the tank. At least I think. Well, but we're going to eliminate the tank as a possibility right now. And actually, we'll turn off the reverb for a sec while we unplug it. And we're just going to use a test tank. This is the out. There we go. So yeah, there's definitely something wrong internally with the jack or with something else. So let's open the chassis back up. Okay, before we really go any further on this thing, it's probably going to be best to take a look at the schematic and see where things are going wrong. The first thing we will notice is that this schematic you'll find online is labeled Gretsch model G6152, which is the exact same circuit as the amp that we have, which is the Airline version, the 62-9025A. Let me put the A there. Also, the Supro S6422TR is the same circuit as well. So just to clarify, those three amps are the same. I believe there's also there may be one more. Or I know there's one more. There's a National that is an N6422TR. Excuse me. So we're going to write that down here. National N6422TR. Now the difference between the National version of this amp is that it had two 8-inch speakers. That was a 2x8 combo, whereas these are going to be 110s. But at any rate, let's look at the power supply. First, we'll notice that the 220 microfarads that we had in series to ground, or excuse me, in parallel to ground, that's correct. So that big cap that was up on top was correct. I went ahead and clipped it out anyway because it was pretty old, and I'm just going to replace it with another cap. But we will also notice that, okay, B1, this is this node here with these two caps combined to ground. So this node is B1. The only thing connected to B1, as you would expect, is the plate of the 6V6 over here.
it's connected through the output transformer to B1, which is all well and good. We expect that. After the B1 node, it goes through a 1K dropping resistor over to node B2. The only things that should be connected to B2 are the screen of the 6v6, which is grid 2, and the also the leg of the transformer, or excuse me, the primary of this transformer that drives the reverb. So actually this should be connected here. Now in the actual amp, it is not connected at that point. We have some problems with the power supply nodes and the way that they're connected. I did notice that. We'll take a little closer look at the amp again here in a moment, but I wanted to finish looking at this. Now on B3, which goes through a 15K dropping resistor first over here to B3, we have all of the plates for our 12AX7s here, 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 and this one here. So all of those plates will be connected to B3. Now let's take a look at the amp itself and see where this is actually connected and what we might be able to do to remedy that. Also, we're going to come in here and put a 20 microfarad cap back to ground on B1. But let's take a look and make sure that these are correct. Okay, we're back inside this amp, and we're going to look at physically what's going on here. Here is the point where all of our leads go underneath the chassis to the transformer that drives the reverb. Here's the lead that we're concerned with, this one here. And this lead right here should be this lead here. Let's see, it should be this lead right here coming out of the primary. So that's the primary leg that's supposed to be going to B2. So let's follow that lead right there, and we'll see where it goes. It hooks right here onto this terminal and picks up right here with this green and white wire. Comes down here and hooks in here, where it meets up with a few different directions. It goes through our dropping resistors. These are the resistors on the power rail, so that's right, and this is right. Then we have two more leads coming off. We have this orange one going this way, and then we have this blue one going this way. The blue one is coming over here to pin 4 of our output tube, which should be the screen. So that should be right. So it is supposed to connect with the screen. But here's where we're going wrong. This one here, this orange one, and you can see here, if you look closely, it looks like it's been burnt, as if someone has tried to move it, or perhaps moved it before and put it in the wrong spot, maybe. But we'll keep that as a mental note. But let's follow where it goes. It's coming down here, and it's hard to tell, but where it ends up is right here on this connection. Now the thing about that connection, if we actually look closely at the at this CAN capacitor, we'll see that there are 3 capacitors in this one CAN, and this one over here is the square. So that one's labeled square. This one is labeled triangle, and this one is not labeled at all. If we look at the top side of the CAN, we'll see that the square is the 20 microfarad, and the other 2 are 10s. So we had a 10 microfarad capacitor, essentially, running parallel with a 20 microfarad capacitor, which was coming off and going to here. This is where that big 20, which is right here, this thing, this capacitor was hooked in at the wrong spot. Maybe from the factory. Don't know. But it was hooked into here, and it was parallel with the 10 rather than being hooked in here, which is where it should have been. And again, I don't know if that was done at the factory by mistake, or if that was done by a previous tech who came in here. I honestly have no clue. Certainly wasn't right, and that's not typical of Valco to really miswire things. I'm sure, maybe this was a Friday amp and it was afternoon and somebody was ready to go and go swinging or something, or well, I guess this would be 60s, so they'd be going out and rock and rolling. But anyway, somebody miswired something somewhere along the line, because that should not have been parallel with a 10 microfarad to ground and a 20 microfarad to ground. They should not have been parallel. The 20s should have been together, like we see in the schematic. You know, once again, node B1 is two 20s parallel to ground, and then we go through the dropping resistor, and then we have a 10, and then another 10. So that's wrong. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rewire this this power rail correctly. Then we'll fire it back up and see how that affects everything, really, but mainly we're interested in seeing how it affects the reverb and whether or not this has anything to do with it. I'm guessing it may have something to do with it, the reason it's not working, but we'll just have to see. My other theory, kind of my plan B theory at the moment, is that maybe one of these tubes, the resistors for the bias have drifted, perhaps, and it may be far enough off, particularly this one, that it's not able to properly push this transformer. So that's my other guess, is that probably either this or maybe even this cap is bad. So these components right here are on my radar next. But first of all, let's go ahead and make the power rail correct, because without that being correct, I mean, everything else in the amp is going to be off. All your voltages are probably going to be off all the way down the line and everything. So let's get that right, and then we'll go from there. All right, we've recapped the amp. Now let's bring it up slowly on a variac. For the first time, I like to, even with new caps, I like to bring them up a little bit slowly on a variac instead of just shocking them all. Well, we've got it fired back up, and that definitely wasn't the source of the problem. Although those caps were better off with them replaced anyway, and now it's correct, and we don't have a 10 and a 20 in parallel. But that wasn't the source of our problem with the reverb, apparently, because it's still not working. So, okay, just inspecting this reverb tank, and everything looks okay. Actually, when I cracked this open, this notice this spring down here was broken, so I've restretched it and reattached it. I don't think that would have been the problem, because earlier I had tried a different reverb tank as well, but I was just making sure there's nothing obviously wrong here. And we'll hook up some leads and make sure at least the inductors on both sides are continuous, if nothing else. We may as well go ahead and do that. But we see here the 1965 38th week on this, and this is one of those Gibbs reverb tanks that gives us that cool, cheesy Valco reverb tone. But anyway, there's the tank. Let's look a little further. I'm thinking, and I've actually already checked out this cap and this resistor for the bias of this tube, and they check out just fine. So that's not our problem. I'm starting to think that our problem may be somewhere with this tube, perhaps, because this is V1, and I have not changed or moved V1 around yet. And this is the second half of V1, and you can see here our signal takes two different paths. It comes off, breaks off down this way to our tone, and then through to the next stage here, and then on to the output. So that's one path that our signal can take. The second path is through the reverb, and this is the first in the reverb stage. So it goes through this one, gets bumped up again, and drives this. So we're going to check this V1 tube also. But we've checked V2 and V3, and neither of those seem to be the problem. And I can tap on the tank and get sound out of the tank. So I know this inductor's fine, and this tube is fine, so it's pushing signal through. Because if you could tap on the tank, this is your tank, so if you could tap on it and get sound coming through, that tells you everything pretty much from here over is good. But our problem is from between here, this point, and this point right here, where our signal splits off. So And we've already checked this tube, so our next logical thing would be to check this tube, and we may also just go ahead and check its voltages and make sure its voltages are where they need to be as well. This is a high voltage. You can see that's 360 volts. But we'll come in here and check this tube, and also we'll check the associated components as well. Okay, I've pulled this reverb tank out of here, and I've got it taken mostly apart. This, unlike some of the other Valcos, was held in with 3 screws through the bottom of the unit, and they just went into the bottom of the cab instead of, a lot of times you'll see a big spring over the top of the box, and this actually will be on the top side with the spring on it, but this was on this padding part was on the bottom side with the screws through it. But this thing was very dusty on the inside, just all kinds of junk, even little pieces of metal fell out. So I don't know if they played a part, but I'm thinking my test, because I tried this with a test reverb tank, and it didn't work with that. I'm thinking maybe the impedance was off on the test tank, so that's why it wasn't working with that one. But this one, as we can see right here, let's see, try to focus here. I don't do that. Focus, damn it. Well, at any rate, I guess it's mostly focused. You can see right there, the wire has been worn bare. I don't know if it's rubbing on the other side. Definitely on this side facing me, it's bare. Maybe it's bare on the other side as well. I'm gonna do some measurements from the tip and from the sleeve to these points up here, and see if they're continuous or if they're shorting out, or I'm going to measure them across too and see if they're shorting out. But look at all the dust. Big bunch of dust right there. Big clod of it. Nasty. No telling what that is. Probably somebody's skin from 1972 in there. I mean, I don't know. The tank looks okay other than that. Like I said, one of these when I opened this thing up first, one of these springs was broken off and the tank was kind of flopping around sideways. But I've got that reattached, and it's at least suspended like it should be. But I don't know, maybe it flopping around like that caused the wires to rub somewhere. On this side they don't seem bad, but this is the output side, so that's the side that, you know, we determined was probably working, because we actually got signal out of the thing. We could rattle it around and signal will come out, but it didn't seem as if signal was going in. We had a couple of little bare wire parts, and I kind of just moved them away from the actual chassis of the tank, and we're going to see how it goes. But here's the moment of truth. I got a guitar plugged in, and here we go. Let's see if we've gotten it. Oh! We have reverb. That's a beautiful sound. That's exactly what you want to hear from a Valco reverb. Cheesy. One other thing I wanted to point out before I move on and button this thing up was that a deviation I found from the schematic. On the schematic, V2, it only shows 1/2 of V2 being hooked up at all. There's no other V2s listed on this schematic, so it's only showing this 1/2. But in the actual amp that I have, V2, which is here, is actually paralleled. If you'll notice, here is pin 1, here's our plate, orange, parallel to pin 6, which is our other plate. Pin 2 is the grid. It's paralleled over to pin 7, which is our other grid, and 3 is also going to 8, and those are our cathodes. So yeah, this thing is paralleled both sides right before, and that's V2. That's the one that's right kind of before the transformer that steps everything down to usable voltages for the tank. Okay, yeah, I did just go ahead and decide to replace those wires after all. I actually had it back together, and I was moving around and noticed that the wires were actually shorting. They weren't shorting actually. They were disconnecting. One of them wasn't getting full continuous connection. So when you wiggled the wire, it would actually cut in and out. So yeah, we'll replace the wires just on this side. So that's ready to go. The tank is good. Cleaned up the chassis, and it's sparkly clean. So that's cool. Really mirror-like finish on these chassis. When you get these polished up, man, they look good. So that's cool. Also fixed the transformer. Just and replaced the bolt as well, the missing bolt. So that transformer's straight. It's got all 4 bolts now. So that's ready to go. Now let's go ahead and button everything back up and check her out. Okay, we're finally at the point of testing out this amplifier. We've fixed. I just shot a big long demo video and had the whole thing erased. It was like 15 minutes long. It was epic and pretty kick-ass. But you'll just have to accept this this tribute to that video. Just consider this like the Tenacious D tribute to the greatest video ever. But at any rate, here's our finished product. All good to go. This thing did come with both foot switches, these Daisy foot switches, which is nice to see. These didn't actually come with the amps when they were sold new, but they were sold right alongside them in the catalogs, and they were kind of an upcharge, an upsell. But it's good to see that there's 2 of them here, one for the tremolo and the reverb. But we're going to start out with this thing about halfway up on the volume, maybe about halfway up or so on the tone. And I'm going to use an amp this time with humbuckers. If you look back in my earlier videos, you'll see I demonstrated this model before, but did not really use a guitar with good output. So so it kind of fell a little bit flat in my personal opinion looking back on it. So it's good to have this opportunity to show what these things can really do, because these are kick-ass amps. You'll see a few amps online where people are actually not a few, but there's 1 or 2 videos I think now where people are demonstrating the new Supros with the old Supros, and you'll see like there's really not much comparison. The new Supros, while they're good sounding amps, they really don't get the grit and just the tone that these do. It's easy to see why Jimmy Page used an old Valco, because the amount of cut in the tone on these is just phenomenal. Here's the back of the amp. We can see I did go ahead and use this Jensen P10S. Looking up this model speaker, I noticed it has 9 watts power handling, which is more than enough for this amp, and it sounds just literally kick-ass. It's got a smooth cone, and this one's from 1963 once again. But here's the back of the amp. Everything cleaned up real nice. I can't be really happier with it, the way it's turned out. But let's get some of the tones out of this thing. Let's see what it sounds like. Again. Hopefully this video takes.
So yeah, that's about a 1965-66 airline model 62-9025A. You know, again, I'm glad I got a chance to have another one of these to demonstrate, because I really didn't do it much justice in my last video. So, but if you'd like to see that, I'll put it down here in the description, and you can, of course, check that out. But thanks for sticking around. I know this has been a really long video, and I know some of my videos kind of ramble on a little bit, but thank you to those of you who watch. And if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to subscribe down here as well, and keep up with us in future demonstrations like this. So have a great one.